Come on, come on, come on, let's go. You've got to go faster. We've got to get down to 1 paperclip every 4 seconds to get anywhere near the record.
How many paper clips do we need to break the world record?
Well, you've got about 12 there. We need just another 1.5 miles to get close.
World records are hard to accomplish.
Records in aviation have been set and broken since the Wright brothers' first flight. They broke their own record 3 times that same day, making 4 flights, with each being longer than the last. You've probably heard about the first flight across the Atlantic, from the United States to Europe. But did you know that Beryl Markham was the first pilot to fly across the Atlantic from Europe to the United States? Her flight came 9 years after Lindbergh's. Jacqueline Cochran set many aviation records throughout her life. At the time of her death in 1980, she held more speed, altitude, and distance records than any other pilot in aviation history. In 1988, the record was set for the longest flight by a human-powered aircraft. The Daedalus 88 flew over 71 miles in a little under 4 hours. Mac Rutherford became the youngest pilot to fly solo around the world. Katrina Mumaw wanted to become a pilot from a very young age. In 1994, she became the youngest pilot to break the sound barrier. She was only 11 years old. Do you want to learn to fly and set an aviation record? In 2020, Robina Osti became the world's oldest flight instructor. She gave a lesson at the age of 99.
Beth, you and I have played basketball with the Harlem Globetrotters. I am pretty sure we can set this next record.
What's this one?
All we have to do is spin a basketball on a toothbrush in our mouth.
What do you mean we?
Okay, I have to do that.
Okay, how long do you have to do it for?
Only 1 minute and 9 seconds.
All right, are you ready? I'll time you.
All right, here we go.
Ready? And go.
Records are hard.
Like aviation records, spaceflight records have been continuously made and broken since Yuri Gagarin's flight in 1961. What followed was a race to the moon, with the United States and Russia setting and breaking records. The first people to spend a week in space were Gordon Cooper and Pete Conrad. Russia set the record for the first people to spend 2 weeks in space. Fast forward 50 years, and Frank Rubio has the longest single stay in space on the International Space Station at 371 days. And Peggy Whitson holds the record for most total days in space with 675. From the early days of space exploration, the number of people in space at one time was 1 or 2. The current record for the most people in space at once is 20, representing 5 different countries. These 20 people were spread out between the International Space Station, the Chinese Space Station, and the Virgin Galactic Unity 25 flight. The first space tourist was Dennis Tito, who spent time on the International Space Station. And the first privately funded human spaceflight was Spaceship One in 1994. The first flight to the International Space Station with an all-private crew was the Axiom 1 mission launched in 2022, and consisted of astronauts from 4 different countries. These records will continue to be broken, and some may have already been broken by the time you're watching this video.
Okay, we've got this one. You know how to type.
Yes.
You have a nose.
I don't like where this is going.
All that you have to do is type 103 prescribed characters in a little over 40 seconds with your nose. You've got this. I'll time you for 10 seconds to see how you do. Ready, set, go! And stop.
I have a headache. How do we do?
You did great. At the rate you're going, it's only going to take you about 3.5 minutes. The record's a little over 40 seconds.
Records are definitely hard to break.
We're going to look at a myriad of air and space records.
And as the old saying goes, records were meant to be broken, so we will be looking at some broken records.
But even if a record has been broken, it was still an amazing feat.
This is STEM in 30.
We are at E.L. Haynes Public Charter School, and we've brought along with us former world record holder John Collins. John, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
John, you broke the world record with a paper airplane, correct?
Yeah, in 2012, we set the world record for distance, a little bit more than 75 yards. It's been broken twice in 2022, so that was a big year for paper airplanes.
Tell us a little bit about your airplane, though.
So the world record design that I came up with was different in a number of really interesting ways. It was the first glider, broad-winged airplane, paper airplane, to break the world record. The rest of them had tiny little wings, and you'd throw them at an arc, and they would crash into the finish line. It took about 3 seconds for the flight. My plane kind of dawdled all the way down the course. It took 9 seconds, a little bit more, to go 226 feet. So big difference there. And then I also changed the way the airflow. I didn't change the airflow over the wing. I took that into consideration for speed because my plane flew a wide range of speeds. I could change the dihedral angle over the length of the plane to maximize lift to drag at those different speeds. That just hadn't been done before. No one had ever thrown a glider that far before. So it was a really interesting plane in a number of ways.
What made you interested in breaking this record?
I noticed if you had world record holder on your book, you could sell a few more books. Actually, I was always interested in the challenge of it. It's just an amazing thing to go after a world record. And once you decide you're going to do that, people come out of the woodwork to help. That was the really cool part of this journey. It took 3 years, and every time you ask somebody for something, they would give you that and something else. It was like people love to help somebody go big. If I could give somebody advice who's thinking about breaking a world record, my advice is go for it. It's so amazing. The journey itself would just be fantastic. You'll be amazed at what you find out.
What got you into paper airplanes?
Marty, I just never really got out of them. I started when I was very young, and I was always interested in how things would fly. You could look at all sorts of things. You know, I remember as a kid looking at insects and how the different kinds of bugs would fly in different ways. Dragonfly is definitely different than honeybees, different than beetles. The difference in just watching insects fly, that was amazing. And then when you look at all the other things that fly, you've got little model planes that you could build. You got full-size airplanes. Full-size airplanes, there's a bunch of different kinds of those. There's jets, there's propellers, there's big wings, little wings, helicopters. What's going on with that? The whole thing was really interesting to me. And then to figure out that you could turn a piece of paper into a flying machine with like no cost. They're throwing away tons of paper every day. Grab a piece of that on its way to the waist, and you've got a flying machine.
Are there rules that you have to follow to break a world record?
Guinness has a scrupulous set of rules for every single record in the book, and so paper airplanes are no exception. And so the size paper that you can use, the weight paper you can use, whether or not you can use tape, all that's spelled out, how you're allowed to throw the plane, how much you're allowed to move during the throw, and that changed, by the way, between the previous world record holder and me. They shortened the run up to only 10 feet from 30 feet. So yeah, and it changes all the time. So if you're going to break a record, write to Guinness and get the rules, because the rules may have changed between the time the last guy broke it and the time you're breaking it.
We're getting ready to send you in to do an assembly with a bunch of kids. What are we in store for?
Fun with a little flight in the middle.
All right, have fun.
Have fun.
Good morning, everybody. My name is John Collins, also known as the Paper Airplane Guy. For 10 years, I held the world record for paper airplane distance. Just got broken in 2022. In fact, it got broken twice. So it was a really big year for paper airplanes in 2022. But when you're the world record holder, you get invited to do fun things all the time, like come to your school. If you guys have never seen my world record throw, here it is. There it is. There it is. We are all over that one. That's going to do it. Get up there, get up there, get up there, get up there, get up there. Yeah, so if that looked like a long throw, that's because it is. 75 yards. And the new world record is 98 yards. So that hangar is not even big enough anymore to break a world record in. That's how far the world record is now.
While John's in showing the students some amazing paper airplanes, we thought we'd take a look at some other world records.
Hey Marty, do you know who Howard Hughes was?
Yeah, secretive rich guy, made a lot of movies?
Well, yes, but also he was an aerospace engineer and a pilot. In the 1930s, he formed the Hughes Aircraft Company, which built the Hughes H-1 Racer. Howard Hughes himself flew the aircraft to break the world speed record in 1935.
Let's learn more about the Hughes H-1 Racer.
It's 1935 and you have all the money in the world and want to build the world's fastest land plane. What would it look like? It would look like this. Howard Hughes, the famous film producer and entrepreneur, was very much involved in aviation as well. And he decided he wanted to set the absolute record for a land-based aircraft. With his money, he went about and did it. The Hughes Racer is a very sleek airplane. Despite the fact that it has an air-cooled engine, which produces a lot of drag, Howard Hughes was absolutely obsessed with low drag. It has a beautiful bell-shaped cowling around it that streamlined the airflow, cooled the engines, and just greatly reduced the drag of the airplane. The fuselage is made out of duralumin, which is aluminum alloy. It is beautifully put together. The wings, interestingly, are not made out of metal. They're made out of wood because the designers at that time felt that they could get a more accurate airfoil shape by using wood and carefully sanding it and resanding it and varnishing it. The Racer does feature retractable landing gear. It didn't pioneer that style, but it was certainly one of the first aircraft to incorporate it. The workmanship on this aircraft is so good that when the landing gear is retracted, you cannot see the seam lines between the gear and the wing. Much like most of Howard Hughes' career, about everything he touched worked extremely well, and this is a perfect example of that.
As I was saying, if I throw it straight, it climbs and does a loop. There we go. So the loop is really your first clue about what's going on with the plane. The plane climbs. But there's something else important going on here, and it has to do with the angle the wings are stuck to the body of the plane. And that's an idea called dihedral angle. And that's fancy words for the angle the wings are stuck to the plane. That's all that means. Most good paper airplanes, most planes you guys are ever going to ride in, the wings slope upward. And aircraft designers do that to put the lifting surface up over where the weight is. So if your plane gets rocked to one side, it's a little bit like having a weight on the end of a string. So this plane has positive dihedral, the wings are sloping upward. And if I throw it leaned over, the weight will swing back underneath the wing. So here we go, positive dihedral, rocks back to level, and keeps on flying. So that's positive dihedral. So let's compare that to the boomerang plane, and you'll start to see what's going on here. Boomerang plane. It's a bit different, right? So the boomerang plane, the wings are drooping. They're sloping downward as it leaves the body of the plane. And that means the plane is not going to self-correct. If I throw it leaned over, it'll stay leaned over. And remember, it climbs. So you have to imagine what a climb looks like. If I lean it this way, it climbs in a circle back that way. And if I lean it this way, it climbs in a circle back that way. If I don't lean it at all, it just does a big circle that way. So as far as the airplane is concerned, it's all exactly the same trick. And you'll see the trick now. I'm leaning the plane to the left, it circles left. I'm leaning it to the right, it circles right. And if I don't lean it at all, it just circles straight back to me. Whoa, held.
Do you know what the problem is with setting world records?
They're really hard.
Yeah, and there's always someone sneaking up behind you trying to break them.
John set his record in 2012, and it was broken 10 years later.
Felix Baumgartner knows all about that. One of his records was broken only 2 years after he established it.
This is a good place to jump into our next video. Let's learn about breaking records from the edge of space.
Tom, we're in front of the Red Bull Stratus capsule. Do you want to tell me a little bit about why we have this here at the museum?
This capsule set 2 world altitude records, the highest a balloon had ever flown and the highest parachute jump. In October of 2012, Felix Baumgartner jumped with his parachute from this gondola from 128,000 feet, almost 128,000 feet. So world altitude balloon, world altitude parachute.
Now this is a capsule and not a basket like we normally see on hot air balloons. So why do we have a capsule and not like a basket?
Well, the higher you go, the lower the pressure. And when you're in an open basket, obviously you're in that low pressure. To make things a little easier and a little safer, this is a pressurized gondola. So he rides all the way up into the stratosphere pressurized. And it's only when he opens the door and gets out on the front step and jumps that his pressure suit kicks in, and then that's what protects them.
2 years after Felix Baumgartner broke the highest altitude records, another person rose to the occasion. In 2016, Alan Eustace set new world records for the highest free fall jump and total free fall distance. Both Felix Baumgartner and Alan Eustace's teams built on the accomplishments of those before them to take humans further. Felix Baumgartner's team even worked with a man that held the records that Felix would go on to break, Colonel Joe Kittinger.
You know, you learn that, the way that science progresses is a lot of people asking questions over time. I've been reading through my whole life on how various people had set various records in the past. Colonel Joe Kittinger, who set the record in 1960, is kind of a personal hero and idol to me, and learning about how he did it, what the reasons why he did it, then with the Red Bull attempts, and then even going back, before that, some of the Russian attempts.
Instead of a capsule like Felix Baumgartner, Alan Eustace's team developed a specially designed stratosuit so that he could not only survive the high altitude, but the layers of the atmosphere.
Understanding the different layers of the atmosphere and how the atmosphere is built was super critical to understanding how this suit needed to be designed. The stratosphere averages about -70 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's very cold. So you cross through this point that we started calling the human thermal equilibrium zone, where the temperatures are kind of perfect. But then above that, you start getting to the point where it's too hot, where there's no air to pull heat away, and it starts being too warm in a suit. So understanding this, that the temperature kind of goes down and down and down until this point, and then it starts going up, and that the pressure is going down and down and down and down all the way until you get to space where there's no pressure left, is really critical to understanding how you would need to design a suit like this.
Another difference that set Alan Eustace apart from Felix Baumgartner's jump was the use of a drogue chute during the entirety of his descent. A drogue chute is a parachute designed to help stabilize and slow the speed of a rapidly moving object.
We thought the addition of a drogue chute would eliminate spins, and Red Bull and Felix Baumgartner had a horrible spin, but he didn't have a drogue chute. So we add a drogue chute, we put a dummy up, and we think, oh, all's well. And then this dummy spins at 180 revolutions per minute. And it's like, we weren't expecting that. We were expecting it to fall pretty much flat. We could look back at Kittinger's jump. Well, why didn't he spin? Turns out by just moving attachment point of the drogue from down here to up here, we can almost eliminate spins. So it was that easy in hindsight. But at the time, of course, it took a lot of dummies being pushed out of aircraft before we figured out that that was the secret. And of course, we had a lot of help. We were standing on the shoulders of a lot of people that had figured it out before us.
So I call this plane a spectacular failure because it didn't start out to be the bat plane. That's not what I was trying to do. I was trying to do something shaped like a seagull. And you can see that I got the wing shape roughly correct. Kind of looks seagull shaped. But when I threw this plane for the first time, something really weird happened. You have to watch kind of closely. Watch the wings. See the wings shake? See the wings kind of shake a little bit? I had never seen a paper airplane do that. And that had me really puzzled. It took about 2 weeks for me to figure out what was going on with this paper airplane. And once I figured it out, I knew I could fold the same plane in the same way with much thinner paper. This kind of goes back to the wing loading idea. So because it's lighter paper, this is an ancient technology called phone book paper, by the way. You can ask your grandparents what a phone book is. If you can't find a time machine and go back in time and get a phone book, you could use tracing paper, good substitute. Lightweight paper is the headline for us, and because it's going to move slower, it'll sort of magnify that effect a little bit. So here's the same plane folded the same way.
In the ballooning world, the balloon is known as an envelope.
These next records truly push the envelope. Bertrand Piccard and Brian Jones completed the first balloon flight around the world 25 years ago.
Let's hear more about this amazing story.
19 days, 21 hours, and 55 minutes. That's how long it took Bertrand Piccard and Brian Jones to travel 29,000 miles, completing the first non-stop balloon flight around the world.
In 1997, on the Breitling Orbiter, and again in 1998, on the Breitling Orbiter 2, attempts were made. They failed, but from those failures, lessons were learned that allowed the 1999 record-breaking flight.
The Breitling Orbiter 3 flew under a balloon that combines the features of a hot air balloon and a gas balloon. The gondola was made of Kevlar and carbon fiber materials. It was powered by solar panels that recharged onboard batteries and used a satellite-based system that allowed the crew to navigate via GPS and communicate with the ground.
Launched from Switzerland, the balloon climbed as high as 38,507 feet and went as fast as 141 miles per hour. On board was a copy of a book which had been signed by Jules Verne, who had imagined a balloon flight in his novel 5 Weeks in a Balloon. It was loaned to the team by Verne's grandson and was from the writer's personal library.
Upon landing, Brian Jones said, "We took off as friends and landed as brothers." You can see the Breitling Orbiter 3 on display at the Stephen F. Udvar Hazy Center in Chantilly, Virginia.
Yes, and if you're the paper airplane guy, here's how you say thanks. Thank you guys. Thank you very much. Thank you. What a great bunch of kids. What fun. I never know who's having more fun, me or the kids.
John, that was amazing.
Are you ready? We've got a smaller group of kids ready to fold some paper airplanes with you.
Let's do that.
Okay. Are you all ready to fold a world record paper airplane with John?
Yeah! All right, let's get folding. Yeah. All right, let's unfold that. You've got a big X in the page. And remember, when we were moving these outside edges to these creases, it's helpful when you move the edge over to still be able to see that crease a little bit. That'll make it easier when we start following the crease, when we really make the top pointy. So we're going to take this edge and we're just going to move it over so it's right next to, not covering, but right next to that diagonal crease. So if you hit the center of the X, this next move is really easy because we're just going to follow the lines on both sides that used to be the X. So we're just going to follow one line. And by the way, if you flip it over, you can see the lines you're going to follow. Those are the lines you're going to follow. So flip it back over this way, and then just you'll be able to follow those lines really easily. So to make wings, we're going to take this thick edge on top, and we're going to move it down so that it lines up with that center crease we just made. And you should see a little triangle at the back of the plane if you're grabbing the right edge. Hold on to it where the locking fold is with one hand. And then with the other hand, just put a finger under one wing and a thumb under the other. And I'm just going to have you lift the wings up and lift close to the nose, not on the tail, but close to the nose. Lift them up and just pinch the tops of the wings together. And then once they're touching, just let go. And then you'll have positive dihedral. And to gain speed on a glider, the nose needs to point at the ground so you can have gravity assist you to gain speed. But if you don't do anything else, you just crash. So what you do is bend the tail feathers up just a tiny bit. We're just making some upward bends right here at the back of the wings. And you'll adjust these as you test fly. You're never really finished adjusting a paper airplane. If it's climbing too much, you'll flatten that out. If it's still crashing, you'll add more. So again, you can control all three axes of rotation. We've got up elevator, that makes the plane go up and down. Left and right rudder, this is called yaw. I still have no idea why that's called yaw. Moving the nose left and right, but you control the nose going left and right just by making a little adjustment right here, and we sneak in roll control with the positive dihedral. If the plane gets rocked to one side, it comes right back to neutral. So you can control all three axes of rotation.
The museum is filled with record-setting aircraft.
One of them is the appropriately named Waikiki Beech, B-E-E-C-H.
The aircraft is the Beechcraft 35 Bonanza.
In 1949, William P. Odom set 2 distance records in this aircraft.
Let's hear more about these amazing flights.
Hi, I'm Ron Odom, son of William Odom.
I'm Rochelle Adair and the daughter of Bill Odom.
And good morning, I'm Russ Stearns. I'm the nephew of Bill Odom. Some of the things that come to mind when we talk about Bill Odom and why we think telling his story is important. From an early age, he really became interested in aviation. And he set goals as a younger person. I have a letter from his second grade teacher. She talked about the fact that he would, when they had an in-class assignment, typically he would finish the assignment well before any of his classmates. He would spend his time then folding paper airplanes and flying them around the classroom. It just shows that in second grade, he was thinking airplanes.
He's a very, very intelligent individual, extremely ambitious. And he skipped actually 2 grades in high school. It shows you how smart he really was.
Beech Aircraft designed and built this new type of plane. Beech Aircraft reached out to him, and he was only too happy to jump on board because not only did he love to fly, but he very much liked the idea of promoting aviation in general. They decided to take off from Hawaii and fly 2,000 miles across the Pacific Ocean and then another 3,000 miles across the country to the East Coast. So that was a trip of over 5,000 miles. The kicker was they wanted to do it nonstop.
The first was actually an unintended stop or landing in Oakland, California. The intent was to go all the way to the East Coast. He ended up turning around because he knew he didn't have enough fuel to make it and landed in Oakland because that was a safe thing to do. So that in itself set a world record for distance 53 days later. And this time he made it all the way to Teterboro, New Jersey, a distance of the record distance of 4,957 miles, actual distance of 5,273 miles. And so that broke his first record and set a new record in a light aircraft.
To me, it was just this elegant silver and red hummingbird with a sassy V-tape tail section. As of right now, the Beechcraft Bonanza is hanging in the National Air and Space Museum.
I hope that it helps and brings in people that are truly interested in aviation and they want to exactly see the plane that did make this world record trip.
So my hope is that the museum continues to use that plane and the other artifacts that they have from Billy Odom's career to help inspire other people.
I'm extremely proud of his accomplishments. We are very proud of him.
You guys have done an amazing job on the folding. Just double check positive dihedral, a little up elevator. You guys ready to test fly? Yeah. All right, let's go. So guys, how do you think it went today?
Great! Y'all ready to go break some records?
Yes! Let's take a look at some record-breaking artifacts in our collection.
The National Air and Space Museum is full of firsts and world record breakers. Some of the highlights include the world's first airplane, the Wright Flyer, which on December 17, 1903, took to the air for 4 flights. The best one covered 852 feet in 59 seconds. Once we took to the air, we developed technologies to keep flying further and faster. The Bell X-1 Glamorous Guinness set a world record in 1947 when the airplane flew fast enough to break the sound barrier. In 1976, the Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird broke the world's record for sustained altitude in horizontal flight at 85,069 feet. And on that same day, another SR-71 set an absolute speed record of 2,193.2 miles per hour, going approximately Mach 3.3, or over 3 times the speed of sound. Of course, you can also see the Apollo 11 command module, which brought the first people to set foot on the moon home. In this capsule was also Neil Armstrong's spacesuit that allowed the first human to explore the lunar surface. And in case you didn't guess, the National Air and Space Museum holds its own Guinness World Record. It's the world's largest aerospace museum, with 2 locations, one in downtown Washington, D.C., and another in Chantilly, Virginia. Our collection has around 60,000 artifacts, including aircraft, spacecraft, and smaller items such as engines, uniforms, and spacesuits.
We're just about out of time.
John, thanks so much for leading our friends through this awesome program today.
Oh, you're so welcome. And guys, I hope to see you all again in the Guinness Book of World Records.
That would be awesome.
And if you like this video, be sure to follow STEM in 30 on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe to the National Air and Space Museum's YouTube channel.
And be sure to check out our teacher tips document with standards, classroom activities, and more videos.
Thanks for watching.
Go. Nice.
Somebody hit the
Nice.
camera? Excellent.
Hit Chris right in the head.
Good job. That's usually my job.
There we go.
It's just this.
I've worked on that.
We don't know what Beth's doing. She's looking at me going. Yeah, we're gonna do this one.
This one
the,
is, yeah.
The ones within the package do not cut.
Now we do our voiceover.
Yeah, there we go. I'm like, is there more? What did I mess up?
I know.
What did I mess up?
I did a pause. You told me to do a pause. I did.
I would scream the entire way down.
I know you would.
The whole way.
I know you would. Voiceover.
Yep. Again.
That was me.
No, I know.
That was a dig
I know.
at me. Ready?
Yep.
In the balloon.